What if the reason your life isn't changing has nothing to do with your goals and everything to do with what you do on a random Tuesday at 2:17 p.m.? Not your big plans, not your fresh starts, just the small things you barely notice. Think about that, because right now you probably feel like you need something big, a big decision, a big breakthrough, a big moment where everything finally clicks. But what if that moment never comes? What if life doesn't change like that? What if it changes quietly? So quietly, you don't even realize it's happening. Until one day, you look back, and everything is different. Be honest. Does this feel familiar? You've tried before. You told yourself, this is it. New habits, new routine, new mindset. You went all in. For a few days, maybe a few weeks. Then something happened. You got tired, busy, distracted, and slowly, you slipped back. Not all at once, just a little. Skipped one day, then another. And suddenly, you're right back where you started. And that's when the thought hits. Why does this always happen to me? Now here's the part that stings. It's not because you're lazy. It's not because you lack discipline. It's because you're focusing on the wrong scale. You're trying to change your life with actions you can't sustain. Big, intense, overwhelming actions. And your brain, it resists that. Because your brain doesn't care about your goals. It cares about survival, efficiency, comfort. So when you suddenly try to become a completely different person overnight, your brain fights back. Hard. That's why it feels so difficult. That's why it never lasts. But this is where things change. Because what if you didn't need to go big? What if the real secret is going small? So small, it feels almost pointless. Now wait till you hear this. The biggest changes in your life don't come from massive action. They come from tiny actions, repeated consistently. Not exciting, not dramatic, but powerful, because small actions compound. Just like interest in a bank account. At first, nothing seems to happen. You put in effort, you show up, and the result, almost invisible. So you start thinking, this isn't working. And most people quit right there because they expect immediate results, immediate proof. But compounding doesn't work like that. It's slow, silent, almost boring. Until one day, it isn't, and that's when everything shifts. But here's the problem. Most people never reach that point because they give up too early. They underestimate small actions and overestimate short-term results. So they quit right before things start to grow. Let me ask you something. If you improve just 1% every day, do you think your life would look the same in a year? Or completely different? Don't answer quickly, think about it. Because 1% feels like nothing. You won't feel it, you won't notice it. But over time, it becomes everything. Now here's the part nobody tells you. Your life right now is the result of small actions, not big ones. The way you think, the way you spend your time, the habits you repeat every day. They've been shaping your life, quietly, without asking for permission. So if you feel stuck, it's not because nothing is happening. It's because something is happening every single day. You're just not aware of it. And that's dangerous because unconscious habits create unconscious results. You don't choose them. They choose you. And suddenly, you're living a life you didn't intentionally build. That's when it feels like you're out of control. But here's the truth that changes everything. You don't need more motivation. You need awareness. Awareness of the small things. Because once you see them, you can change them. And once you change them, your life starts to shift. Slowly, but surely. Now this might sound simple, too simple, like, that's it? Small actions? Really? But that's exactly why it works. Because you don't resist small actions. You don't overthink them. You just do them. And doing is what creates momentum. But here's where it gets real. Because knowing this and actually applying it are two very different things. Why do we still choose comfort, even when we know it's hurting us? Why do we ignore the small actions? That could change everything. And more importantly, how do you break that pattern for good? Because once you figure that out, you stop starting over, and you finally start moving forward. And this is where everything finally clicks, because by now, you can see it. The pattern, the truth. The reason nothing changed before was never because you didn't try. It's because you were trying the wrong way. Too big, too fast, too unsustainable. You were chasing transformation while ignoring the foundation. But now, you understand something most people never do. Your life is not built in big moments. It's built in small, repeated actions, quietly, daily, whether you notice it or not. And that changes everything, because now, you're not waiting for motivation anymore. You're not waiting for the perfect time. You're not waiting to feel ready. You've seen what waiting does. It keeps you stuck. Now here's the part where it gets real. Because knowing this is one thing. Living it, that's where your identity shifts. Because the moment you start respecting small actions, you start respecting yourself. You stop breaking promises to yourself. You stop saying, "I'll do it tomorrow." You start showing up. Even when it's boring, even when it's small, even when no one sees it. And that's when something powerful happens. You build trust. Not with others, with yourself. And self-trust. That's the foundation of everything. Confidence, discipline, consistency. It all comes from one place, keeping the smallest promises you make. Let me ask you something. Which version of you do you trust more? The one who sets big goals and disappears? Or the one who does small things every single day? Sit with that, because your answer matters. Now here's something most people won't admit. Small actions feel boring. There's no dopamine rush, no instant reward, no applause. It's just you, doing the same thing again, and again, and again. And your mind will try to convince you this isn't enough. This won't change anything. You should be doing more. But that's the trap, because the magic isn't in doing more, it's in doing it consistently. Now imagine this. You commit to one small habit, just one. You do it every day. No excuses, no overthinking. A week passes. Nothing dramatic. A month passes. Still, subtle. But then, something shifts. You feel different, not because the habit is huge, but because you became the type of person who shows up. And that identity, that's where the real change lives. Because once you see yourself differently, your actions follow. Now here's a question most people avoid. What if your life doesn't need a complete reset? What if it just needs a slight adjustment, repeated daily? Think about that, because that means you're not far away from the life you want. You're just a few small actions, repeated consistently, away. And that should feel exciting, but also a little scary. Because now, you can't blame confusion anymore. You can't say, "I don't know what to do." You know, it's just small, and that's harder to respect. But this is where things change for good, because the moment you commit to small actions, you remove overwhelm, you remove pressure, you remove the need to be perfect, and you replace it with something better. Progress, real progress, the kind that doesn't burn out, the kind that doesn't disappear, the kind that builds quietly. Now picture your life 6 months from now, if you actually follow through. Not perfectly, but consistently. Waking up and doing that one small thing every day, no matter what. Who would you become? Not who you wish you were. Who would you actually become? More focused, more disciplined, more in control. Not because of one big change, but because of hundreds of small ones. And here's the truth. That version of you already exists. It's not a different person. It's just you. with different habits. Now this next part matters more than anything. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your systems. And your system? It's built on what you do daily. Not occasionally. Daily. So if your system is weak, your results will be too. But if your system is strong, your results become inevitable. And that's the shift. From hoping things change to knowing they will. Because you're doing the work. Quietly. Consistently. Now let's bring this full circle. You started this feeling stuck, overwhelmed, like nothing was working. And now, you see the truth. It was working, just not in the way you expected. Small actions were shaping your life all along. Now the only difference is, you're aware, and awareness gives you control. So here's the takeaway. Not complicated, not flashy. Just real. Your life changes the moment you respect small actions. That's it. That's the secret. And if something inside you is saying, "This makes sense," don't ignore that, because that's your signal. Not to start big, but to start small. Right now. One action, one step, one decision, and then do it again tomorrow. And the next day. And the next. Because that's how everything changes. Not loudly, not instantly, but inevitably. If this hit you in a way you didn't expect, don't just move on. Let it stay. Because sometimes, the smallest idea creates the biggest shift.